I'ma show you one time to force you to learn. Then it's over for you clowns and you forfeit your turn. Torture and burn, kill with no remorse or concern. I put your ashes on a medal in a porcelain urn. Court is a like bids handed out, no speaking. You better watch your step, cuz no sleeping. But your goons in a hot whip, slow creeping. Hopping out, masked up, the flow deepens. These ain't cats that blasted for no reason. They ride for the cause, that's the Mohicans. Blast of a dying breed, you don't wanna die and bleed. You will perish violently if you see the iron squeeze. Time to leave, shit is gonna get mucky. No miracles, you ain't gonna get lucky. It isn't gonna play like that. You gon' stiff and you gon' stay like that. Laid right flat, you gone. Bah, it's a homicide. Family and your mama cry, permanently traumatized. On the grind and the rate is on the rise. Only the strong survive. Strong survive, you gone. Bah, it's a homicide. Family and your mama cry, permanently traumatized. On the grind and the murder rate is on the rise. Only the strong survive. Strong survive.
Shit, waiting for the rush, keep the 40 tucked. Talking about you let the 40 ball nigga story up. Corner hot phone tap, follow home police watching. 10 drop pimps hocking hoes that be street walking. A deep option is if the beat popping. A peace offering, went to saying rest in peace opting. Sleep copping 6 feet, death is a must. Arrested and cuffed, prison ride next is a bust. The road cold, but the paper keep us warm in the night. With North Faces bottle ace, but we pouring the light. Tunnel vision, eyes knock, all I see is a dollar. Piece of shit in the mirror, all I see is my father, fuck him. The game got us all twisted in a hurricane. Lost my mind when the crime came and the murders came. To all my niggas getting bread on the grind. There's no bail when you're locked doing federal time.
You gone, bah, it's a homicide. Family and your mama cry, permanently traumatized. On the grind and the murder rate is on the rise. Only the strong survive. Strong survive, you gone, bah, it's a homicide. Family and your mama cry, permanently traumatized. On the grind and the murder rate is on the rise. Only the strong survive. Strong survive. Any motherfucker to come harder than me and Grams.
Slam empty the clip until I see him land.
All out, empty the strip, people fleeing range.
I need a plan, triple beam scale and a key of grams.
Legal dams, no options available. Coppers are tailing you, close friends failing you.
Penny ginger ale, a dude cushion a glass jar. Cocaine moving dope faster than NASCAR.
Trying to earn hard, but you crashed in a firestorm. Trying to live the life of a G in a higher form.
My dog's a rider for blood in and blood out. If you ain't down with my team, bitch, get the fuck out.
I take a bullet for my fam, I'm my brother's keeper. It ain't about no music, the struggle's deeper.
Drugs and tweakers searching for the best rock, trap house, T-grams, crack man, next shot.
Gone, bah, it's a homicide. Family and your mama cry, permanently traumatized. On the grind and the murder rate is on the rise. Only the strong survive. Strong survive, you gone, bah, it's a homicide. Family and your mama cry, permanently traumatized. On the grind and the murder rate is on the rise. Only the strong survive. Strong survive.
One day everything fucking changes and the sun don't come back again and you can't get no change at the store and they don't have what you're looking for. Strangers keep working at the fucking house and I know because KRS
we're gonna make it, yeah. They ain't stopping us, hey? Nah, they ain't stopping us, nah. Check it. So true, cats. I don't know. I was born to grow up, abandoned and poor. Take medications that makes me tired and also sore. I never asked for this, it just kinda came. Now I'm trying to make money, I'm after the fame. Kids blame me for everything that went bad. My dad was an alcoholic, he drank till he passed out. I lived in constant doubt, I always have to shout to get my point across. I lived in about 100 different group homes. Never had the same bed for a month. I felt alone.
Oh, and we're learning how you get treated in the group home, aren't we? Right on the nose. Oh, I'm going to tell you the stories.
It's nothing new, that's how I was raised. Went through all elementary school getting hazed. I met this girl, our friendship went terribly wrong. But that's just another reason for emotion in this song. Life is what you make it. through the thick and the thin. Been lost in the struggle, still I'm striving to win. Sin in my soul boils these decisions down. King of depression held down by your glittering crown. After Pops died, mama had a heap on the back. Now I'm trying to make fat stacks off of these tracks, trying to be the best in all these things that I do. Say fuck the world, I roll with the infinite crew. Trife times, night crimes make me wanna give in. No surrendering from all these places I've been. This is for my bad health and the things I create. This is for my hoard and all of the things that I state. Every moment above ground is a gift from above. Through the pains in the field, towards hate and the love. Gotta keep trucking even if I might break shit. And all the people keep telling me you're gonna make it.
Oh, it hurts.
Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. Where you at? Hit me up, where the money, where the stand? Get us paper, get us cash. No, we here, with my niggas in the trash. Put it in, flip it quick, get it back. Hit me up, with my niggas in the room. Cleaning up, sweeping up with a broom. Run it up, run it up, run it up. Double cup, double cup, double cup. So I got a couple racks today. Didn't think I'd make it, but I made it back today. Cashing out, in the bank every day. Put it work, get paid, get paid. Where my niggas at? Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. Just got off the plane, juice all in my veins, 6 bars in my name. No one on these lanes. Fucking Friday night, I ain't playing no games. I'm that West End chick that was raised in the lane. Yeah, you won't believe it. Yo, just raise the speed. They call it, but they can't get a hold of me. Freeze up Friday, BT, raise a bar for the scene. If the work ain't clean, don't come for me. They show up before, but they don't wanna come around. I'ma ride this way, put the water right now. I'ma spark this place till the fire burn out. I'm before, but I'm no step now. Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, like I won the lottery.
This shit is evil. Oh yeah, my chest ain't burning or nothing. I ain't got diarrhea or nothing, but it hurts all up in there. My sinuses
Yo, Jeezy, I thought you ain't gonna see you.
and I got the B19 red dots. Means my immune system's not overpowered, man. Overwhelmed.
Look, you know, from the grind for the minute, trying to get it on. I've been getting it. These niggas have been sweating it. Don't get off the back, I wanna phone a nigga begging it. I'm way ahead of it, I'll ride upon a nigga letting it off. When it comes to this rap shit, fuck this, so is Jeezy low. Man agrees with folk. I'm out for them notes, but I still keep it close. Case a man try provoke, that's 5 shots through his throat. Listen, if you know, then you know. I'm still on Lawrence Road, shot and pose, stashing knives in me clothes. If it's not your beat, don't get involved. Don't be ride out to slap a nigga down, and no cases getting sold. Listen, I'm the shooter, you're the victim. I rode out with him and told police I went with him. I gave me boys fellow tips, slopes for the loot. I said that's for that dude. The next day when it clipped him, back on it. Niggas got the shotty. Said I don't want it. I've got no way to put it. Plus it's out of bullets and I hate them shotguns. Cause when I leave, niggas got no way to stuff it. I'm riding out with hand things with bullets that expand. If a hitman by the barbers, he gon' land by pound. And then he lost. So don't act like you found, man. 8 bills for the odds if you want that brown tan. Listen, I'm trying to stay low off the radar from hope because I know they want me still. Still trying to find me from crimes that I did years ago, but I don't even give a fuck. I got fined once, they hit me with some threats, talk about they'll take the shit if I didn't pay the debts.
1600 what? 1600, go fuck yourself. No, $2,000 out of me for no reason. Fuck you, better have a gun in an army, bro. You can get 2 G's from me. I'll show you 2 G's. It's me, there's gonna be 2 more G's. Yeah, watch. I'll come rob the POA office. Yeah, I know how much cash you bring in every day. I'll jack up everybody in line, too. You got 100 people in line with credit cards in their pockets. Hey, I'll fuck you all. All your car keys, I'll ship all that shit straight to Africa. Fuck you, so much too, right? $2,000, you want 2 G's from a real 2 G's. Yeah, fuck you,
I'm like, words on my mother, this part kills. And if I don't have it, then I know that this knife does. See where I'm from? Man, no, got the holy ghost liver for a man, turn your liver to a puller. It's that real. Can't feel when the gas will. And the thing gets
all them
down
accusations is bullshit.
and I'm like,
walk around with that. I
taking
don't
it
need
all
to.
back. You know I'm a boss. I took a break, but I'm taking it all back. Handles done smooth, pump short, cause I saw that. Guns with suppressors like I'm ready for combat. Yo, A-Star, all these fuck niggas beyond that. One phone call, 7 niggas in all black. We ready, nigga. Cock back and blow deadly, nigga.
In the meantime, I need that deposit money back. Oh yeah, I'm taking your money first before I ever give you anything back. Yes, sir. Oh, and I snagged all the aluminum first. I left all the glass so all the white junkies can cut themselves all to hell and waste their time all to hell dragging that heavy shit. Yeah, you think they're making money. They're wasting their fucking day picking up wine bottles. Everything's done on purpose. Butterfly effect with the Intratec. Remember, this is how I function after they've given me like multiple diseases and everything trying to fuck my life up, eh? They were caught breaking into my house. They were caught putting bed bugs in. They gave me the B19. They were caught with the scabies. They were caught all that shit.
Don't get
coming in there doing whatever. That's why I don't clean shit up. Oh, I'm gonna disinfect everything and some dirty cocksucker spreading this shit's gonna
we just get it, man.
Exactly what I want.
Trapping his back, 40s and 5s, team on the Mac, hop on the whip, using the max, 40 with 30s,
They're smart enough to know they can leave things in here. They can't take things out of here. They know it ain't gonna get arrested for clean. The B19 got all the color of my skin, so I'm not too happy about that. And the COVID-19 now, I don't have to worry about getting it. I already got it. Problem's out. Shoot the hostage. Okay. I'm obviously gonna beat it.
Just blood shit gets on my nerves. Left the band though, I'll be back on the
White
first.
boy, you're gonna lose your fucking job. Infecting that many fucking people. Are you being a racist?
Shorty got bad, tell me what is yours worth. Went for the block, came straight from the dirt. Take her up the ends, move to the birth. Got coke, got crack, got perks. Got beef, rap, bullets that hurt. Hands over bread like Sesame Seed. Big bird on the block, Sesame Street. Whip, 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 turn a chip to a treat. I don't got friends, man, I only got feet. Capping is dead, trapping is back.
You know they got spoken to, but there's no jumping up in people's faces now. That's why I keep going back. I'm watching these motherfuckers. In their head, oh, he must be desperate to even be here the way we treat him. No, you're not getting it. I caught you on video throwing blood in my face. I caught you on video cutting me with a kitchen knife. I caught you on video trying to throw me through a window. I caught you on video spitting in my face. It's all on video. It's all on this fucking channel, man. If I made any of it up, why are the videos still up? We had crackheads working at the uranium plant. Oh yeah, they're cooking uranium and they're cooking crack too. Not all of them. There was a crackhead working at the plant. Fucking idiot police around here thinking, oh, well, he works at the plant. He must be a good guy. He's smoking crack next to you. Like what? No, he's white. He wouldn't do that. He works for the government. You think all the crack dealers get their best customers?
We're gonna make it. Yeah. They ain't stopping us, hey? Nah. They ain't stopping us. Nah. Check it. No Dreamcast. Let them know. I was born to grow up, abandoned and poor.
It's 15:23 o'clock.
Black bandana, black and green bandana, black bandana, black and green bandana, black bandana.
I don't know how these idiots decide to do shit when I'm already recorded. I don't know how the fuck that keeps happening.
Black bandana, black bandana, black and green, black bandana, black bandana, black and green, black bandana, black bandana, black and green, black bandana, black bandana, black and green. On that gang shit, on that we don't play shit. Let it spray shit, flossing ain't no K shit. Let it bang shit, let your colors hang shit. On that crazy shit, chopper spit and flame shit. Know you ain't shit, know you mad today, bitch. We done made it, off the block we skated. Massachusetts, made its way to New York State. Puzzle piece gang, we can take this whole country. One block at a time, bricks in halves, quarters down. Flip it one more time, stacking paper, godless crime. Facts are shit, you dealt with them the real quick. Extra clips, plastic filter to the tail. Black bandana, black and green bandana, 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 black bandana, black bandana, black and green, black bandana, black bandana, black and green, black bandana, black bandana, black and green, black bandana.
Oh yeah, so this virus makes it very difficult to take.
You ain't got your shit on us.
Go use on one trip to it.
Because we get no fuck.
No, all the money I need today. All the money I feel like getting today. I'll get more tomorrow.
We dangerous like Buster Bustin' 97. We aiming bustin', you wanna stay way to heaven. I'm about to like to get the back and fucking white. I got that heart that's soft that put that fucking white. In my kitchen, serving beats, feeding addiction. My money straight, this life I leave you fucking bitching.
Oh, I'm a Boy Scout. I'm bringing an extra garbage bin in case some of these fucking bags rip. That's why I don't want to bring them all in one shot. In case something happens, I know if I bring them all, one of them's gonna break.
Black and green bandana, black bandana, black and green bandana, black bandana, black and green bandana, black bandana, black bandana, black and green, black bandana, black bandana, black and green, black bandana, black bandana, black and green, black bandana, black bandana, black and green.
Oh my god, my head fucking hurts.
What's wrong with him? Listen. I walk with a flame like Blocker, the cockback's proper. One shot to have you niggas screaming like the opera. It's black like Oprah, straight King Cobra. Top left over your heart, shoots through shoulders. It burns like second degree, but who's stepping to me? Please free, right hand when I get checked it up free. Rich niggas move calm and collective. That chain ain't shit unless your palm can protect it. My palm can protect mine, empty of the tech line. I don't give a fuck about jail, I'll do dead time. Feds found your body in the building cause we killed you. Like who's realer? Got two of like Bob the Builder. All I really wanted was a gun and a vest. Like who's next? To get shot in my complex and I'm straight stressed. Grab money when time's death. I'll take a nigga's bezel, leave a nigga timeless. I grew up with no motivation. Drive right past the cops and investigations. Pump with no registration. Pull me over like, sir, we arresting you. Shotgun, stolen car, and cats on the register. You say tomato, well I say tomato. West End Toronto, squirt heat like volcanoes. I must confess, my life ain't
picture perfect, was on top, got knocked, now fucking hurting. All I got left is pride and my dignity, and a finger in the middle if you ain't digging me. My family matters, the big guy, car Winslow, minus the badge with big straps, blast windows, stay cool like the other side of the pillow. I serve shots like the fox on the fucking pillow. Don't know your name, so you better take it slow, dog. Yo, MCA, where the fuck's can and no, dog? You little faggots better run up, cause I won't stop till the zipper on my body bag is done up. Heard you got drugs, then Jeezy's gon' pick up. Roll up with his lip up, big pump, this a stick up. 7-5 block, bust shots, you'll get lit up. Beat backs like a hiccup, burn naps like a sit up, nigga.
Medicine bad man with the bad plan.
Everyone of them dies. Everything is wrong. We bleed from levels, even some rebels coming around. We ain't moving, we shooting till every one of them dies. We shoot back, shoot back.
Running up with them, standing in the way, yeah. Ain't the type to break his friends for the ones that wanna be saved, and I don't wanna be saved. I'm gonna put in work for all my peoples in the dirt, assuring you your death is worth something and know nothing. It's never gonna slow us down with the spirit of a warrior on the front line before us, not even bullshit stop us down. We up with us, if you with us, fuck with us, steady, ready for whatever comes our way. Molotov throne breaking out in flames, burn everything inside, can't tame the beast in me. I'm insane, coming for the brain, cause the pain never cease. Rip them up and I ain't slow till I see them guts dropping. My motive is explosive to stop the intruders in their tracks, popping up my gas, staying straight, busting until them bodies dead. It ain't over till I lost his back, and that's a fact. Where you at? In the struggle, baby, stab is on the hustle. I'm gonna grab them by the face and wrap their mouth around my muzzle.
What they at, what they doing, what we hit on these demons, leaving everything in ruins. We bleed from levels, even some rebels coming around. We ain't moving, we shooting till every one of them dies. We shoot back, shoot back. What they doing, what we hit on these demons, leaving everything in ruins. We bleed from levels, even some rebels coming around. We ain't moving, we shooting till every one of them dies. We shoot back, shoot back. My strength is proper behalf, I'm on the savage. We gon' blast them till they drop and off our land now. We not gonna stand by, we're out here watching the fam die. And I'm dumb busted, dumb son on these motherfucking bloodsucker vampires. Know your face, they say, but we've been racing, hating, chase away the pain. Now we the rage insane and aim to bang on anybody looking for me. Looking now, you made me this. Look around and angry pussy devils murdering baby kids. You in the midst of a war, giving our glow with pistons, swirling anti-tightness. Into cities and leave them listening torn. Don't get more normal, be poison just like the old days. A whole gang of savages, don't care to die of old days. It's so sacred, it's hatred that we was born with. Nurture for the
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur Trudeau. Hello, Mr. Trudeau. We'd like to come back.
Stop! I can hear ya!
Stay at Edmonton Lake for several weeks.
Before they, they fucked my whole education with this and this propaganda. No, don't listen in French. We will tell you what they're saying. Fuck you, you whore.
Why? Because of your own family, it was okay for you to go there. I announced this last week. I said that after 3 weeks of working here, my family was living in at Harrington Lake.
Shut up! You're fucking it up!
Easter with my family, and we continue to respect all the.
As I mentioned last week in my presentation,
She was about to start translating the English to English.
at Harrington and me working here. I went to join them for Easter. We continue to follow all the instructions from public health authorities.
Merci, question suivie.
Mais oui, avez-vous vu une indication comme quoi c'est correct? Parce que c'est des choses se posent sur les médias sociaux et vous écrivent.
All over social media, people are wondering why this exception was okay for you. Why it was okay for you to go see your family at the cottage. My family has been living there for 3 weeks. This is where my wife and my children live. And as I announced last week, I was going to go spend Easter with them there.
They're all on fucking quarantine. What a stupid question.
Alex Domdo, Toronto Star, line is open.
Morning, Prime Minister. You mentioned in your introduction that people traveling to Canada will need a credible quarantine plan. Can you expand on what the government's definition of a credible plan will be? Who will affect that? And where would that be applied at the land border as well as at airport?
The order that goes in tonight is the strengthening of the Quarantine Act orders to give authorities the ability, upon evaluation of the person entering Canada's plan to self-quarantine, if it is inadequate, they will be required to quarantine in a hotel. Examples of things that could be inadequate, for example, if their plan is to go stay in a place where there are many elderly family members at risk of COVID-19, or where they don't have a set destination if they've been outside of the country for many years. We now have the authority to require them to self-isolate for 2 weeks in a quarantine location like a hotel.
Undisclosed locations, of course, hotels. They're all fucking empty. Well, they're not. That's the interesting thing.
From public health, there's been incomplete information sort of stubbornly over a period of time with case report forms on only 62% of our cases, hospitalization data for less than half. Why is this such an incomplete picture? And are you concerned that having an incomplete picture will affect or make it more difficult to allocate resources across the country?
I want to once again thank the provinces for being tremendously active on improving the quality of the data that they send us in Ottawa. There were significant gaps in the beginning, but I can highlight that almost all provinces have done a much better job in sharing their data with Canadians in their provinces, but also with the federal government, that is allowing us to have a much more complete picture. We continue to improve on data collection and collation every single day, but that is something that, as you highlight, is a really important way to ensure that we're doing the right things at the right point to keep Canadians safe.
Prime Minister Mike Lucas with Global National. I wanted to ask you, Alberta's Energy Minister has said that she's expecting a federal relief package for Canada's oil and gas sector between $20 and $30 billion, and she's expecting it later this week. Can you confirm those details first, and can you say if the federal government will be taking equity stakes in Canadian firms?
When we have issues to announce on sectoral supports, we will be making those announcements.
So then, as a follow-up, some workers in the oil patch worry that key Canadian companies will be vulnerable to foreign takeovers or will decide to relocate head offices to other jurisdictions. Should your government forbid foreign takeovers in the energy sector or relocations for at least this period of time?
We are very concerned about
foreign corporations. If you come try to take our land, we kill your workers. Period. Ask the RCMP. It's no joke. We shoot at them and beat the court case. No joke. Ask them Texan niggas why they don't come back to Canada.
Our focus has always been
Selwyn, where are you?
Good Canadian jobs remain. We know that Canadians and families are suffering, and that's why we need to support them. Nous reconnaissons à quel point c'est important de
Oh, yeah, and the Prime Minister had a response too. You might want to look up what he said to us. I'm just telling you, you'll die in that oil field. You're not digging holes in our land.
Financially after this crisis, but we need to support the workers and the families that are hard hit by COVID-19.
Prime Minister, it's Annie Bertrand-Oliver with CTV National News. You said that you're going to have more news about essential workers and the CERB in the coming week, but employees at long-term care facilities are already leaving their jobs. You brought Parliament back and you passed the wage subsidy this weekend, but there was no specific help included for the long-term care industry. What specific specifically is your government going to do now to keep long-term care facilities properly staffed so that the new guidelines your government implemented this weekend can be followed?
We're in conversation with the provinces right now on moving forward on a model of increasing support for long-term care workers and other workers in essential industries, like Quebec has done, to ensure that people are motivated and encouraged financially, as well as because it's something that they believe in deeply, to continue caring for our most vulnerable. Nous reconnaissons que le Québec, par exemple,
we recognize that Quebec has implemented concrete measures to encourage and also to pay people who are working in long-term care homes. These people play an essential role right now. We are having discussions with the provinces to do this on a national level.
Security experts are saying that Canada's intelligence network was not prepared for the pandemic, and that instead of being able to rely on our own Canadian intelligence, we were dependent on our American allies as well as the Five Eyes network. When
Trump didn't know till February.
Did Canadian intelligence tell you about the possibility of a pandemic, and when did
They've
you
been
hear that
talking about it
information
for
from our
years up
allies?
there. The Canadian forces have been on top of the idea of a pandemic for years. I've been paying attention. Why do you think I'm cleaning sewers? Need drainage for sanitation to not spread cholera. Pandemic means you get a bunch of cascading problems.
With our Five Eyes allies and other intelligence services around the world, and being aware of this potential challenge on the horizon, and we're dealing with it as of the end of January. Nous avions eu des rencontres au niveau de sécurité et
we had meetings with regards to security and intelligence at the end of January. We highlighted our concerns and that we had with regards to coronavirus at the time.
They hate the fact we can switch back and forth between English and French. They hate that.
In concert with our allies from the Five Eyes Network and other allies around the world. Christian Noël, at Radio-Canada, earlier you spoke about a phased recovery for the economy. What could this look like is for people in their daily lives? What would this staggered recovery look like? And on the border as well. I understand that people want to know when we will be able to go back to economic activity. We need to stay in this phase for quite a while still. We're not yet on the other side of the curve. During this first wave of COVID-19, we have to hang on up until experts and science tell us that we can begin easing up on some measures. There will be some industries in some sectors where people will be able to go back to work in a more safe fashion, and we will have these discussions with the provinces. We will discuss this with the provinces in the weeks to come. Now, with regards to the U.S., we continue to discuss with the Americans, and we talk about a coordinated approach. The travel restrictions will last for many weeks to come.
We recognize that people are eager to know when we'll get into the next phase and be able to loosen some of the restrictions on work, on school. We will be looking at that very carefully with the provinces in different ways across the country to make sure that where we start work up again in the weeks when we're allowed to do that, because right now we are still very much in this phase and will need to remain in this phase for a good while still. But as we start to open up, we will be strategic and vigilant about what we are able to do in a very gradual way. In regards to the American border, we recognize that travel restrictions are going to remain extremely important in terms of containing the spread of COVID-19 in Canada, and we're going to continue to work.
Nobody crossing the border. Nobody, except you Mexicans.
To ensure that we continue with these restrictions.
Now, with regards to long-term care homes, you say that you're having discussions with the province to see how you can help them. What are the provinces asking for? Money, staff? medical staff from the Army. What is part of the discussion, and what can the federal government do more concretely to help them? We have different conversations with the provinces on with regards to the long-term care homes throughout the country, because the regions are very different. The situation is very different. Some provinces are very interested by the Quebec model, which seeks to provide extra pay to those who are working in the seniors' homes. And some provinces are interested, and the federal government might be able to participate and send additional funding to help these people out. There are other proposals coming from different provinces, and we're looking at everything. We're trying to see to what extent it's important. It's important to be there for seniors, and there hasn't been any request made for the help by the Canadian Army.
We've been looking at different ways of ensuring that our long-term care facilities and our seniors' residences have the support that they actually need, have the workforce that they need to take care of our seniors. There are a number of provinces looking at the model put forward by Quebec that involves a salary top-up for people working in these essential jobs.
Fuck it up so long, here's your age.
In sending money to the provinces to help in those, and we're having discussions with the provinces about what that is. But there are very different needs and situations right across the country, and we're continuing to work with different provinces on their different priorities.
Prime Minister Tom Perry with the CBC News. Premier Jason Kenney says that federal bureaucracy is standing in the way of approving tests and drugs to use against COVID-19. He's directed his officials to consider using medications that have been approved by Europe or the U.S. Health officials.
It seems like a bad idea, right? About us, is they're all fucking doing dumb shit.
Consequence of a province attempting to do this be, given it doesn't have that jurisdiction?
We are in an unprecedented crisis, and that creates a significant level of anxiety. So I understand that people can get anxious and impatient about things, but as a government, we are going to remain grounded in science. We are going to remain grounded in our experts who are doing an excellent job in ensuring that Canadians are kept safe and healthy.
I recognize that we are in an unprecedented situation, and people can become impatient and feel quite anxious. We are going to stay the course. We're going to follow the recommendations made by the experts and public health officials to keep Canadians safe and healthy.
Premier Kenney also spoke yesterday about Dr. Theresa Tam. And he said he believes she's qualified to be Canada's chief public health officer, but he also said that in January she was repeating talking points of the People's Republic of China about there being no evidence of human-to-human transmission.
Yes, she
What's
was.
your response to that? And do you think comments like this run the risk of
Bitch, I got a memory too,
of Canada's public health officials?
I think Canadians have demonstrated that they have a tremendous level of trust and confidence in our public health officials and in our medical system. And we are going to continue to work with top medical officials. This idiot
admires China's ability to change its economy on a dime. Yeah, because it's a communist dictatorship. Oh, they vote. Sure they vote. For the same party, all of them.
Canadians can trust our public
We tried to play hardball with the Chinese. It did not work out well.
To help us and to protect us. We will continue to work with all the public health experts to ensure the health and safety of all Canadians, including, of course, the wonderful Dr. Tam. Thank you. That's all for the press conference. Thank you.
That's it.
And as you've been hearing, that was our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Key takeaways. He says the federal government is spending $130 million to help communities in the north withstand the COVID-19 pandemic. More than half that money being sent to the Yukon and Northwest Territories. And none of it, that's for their health needs, social services, and air transports of essential goods.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Everything costs a lot more to do.
And cannot present an adequate quarantine plan must check into a hotel to quarantine for 2 weeks. And as outbreaks continue at long-term care homes, a salary increase could be on the way for employees to ensure no one is walking off the job. Prime Minister ended his update saying it will still be weeks until the economy and life begins to return to normal, and urged all Canadians to hang on, stay patient, and help each other.
680 News Time, 11:47.
Stop the spread. COVID-19 can be deadly. Everyone must act now. We must stop the spread to protect our families, our friends, our neighbors, and especially our most vulnerable. You may be unintentionally putting others at risk with your actions. Protect others. Stay home. Save lives. Do your part and act now. Visit ontario.ca/coronavirus for more information. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
Could you use $20,000? $30,000? How about $300,000? With a home equity loan from Capital Direct, the money you need, the money you could really use right now, is a simple phone call away. Compared to the banks these days, Capital Direct's lending criteria is not as strict. If you own property, Capital Direct can help. It's that simple. Call them today at 1-800-NEW-CAPITAL. CapitalDirect.ca.
680 News Time, 11:48.
Ontario is reporting close to 500 new cases of COVID-19 today and a record number of new deaths. The update comes as the Ontario legislature is set to reopen this afternoon to extend the provincial state of emergency. 680's Irene Precklett is following this and joins us live with the latest.
People listen to anything.
Sarah, it's
I'm
the
telling
largest
they're
number of
telling me, yeah, it's
COVID-19
been extended to the
deaths
extent I
so
know
far
they're
in
going to.
Ontario
No,
in a
it's been
single
done.
day. 43
Buddy, it's
people.
9:30
The
in
number
the
of
morning.
lives
They didn't
lost
fucking
now
do shit yet.
334 in Ontario.
Even smart people are
483
stupid.
new
I don't get
COVID-19 cases being reported. That brings the province to a total of 7,953 cases. However, almost 40% of those, the people, are now better. We have seen a slight increase in hospitalizations,
You haven't covered this immunity thing
and the
and
number of people in
contagion.
the ICU and on ventilators. Meanwhile, the Ontario legislature will sit briefly this afternoon to extend a state of emergency in the province for an additional 28 days. Opposition leader Andrea Horwath says the NDP will support the bill to extend it, but she says new measures should have been included in the bill.
We also need to put living expenses into students' pockets in the form of OSAP grants to get them through the weeks ahead, because their OSAP funds are about to run out and in some cases already have, and their summer job prospects are slim to none. And finally, we need to offer complete drug coverage for anyone receiving emergency benefits.
The government is also expected to pass on other pieces of legislation this afternoon.
Thanks to the
Reporting live,
generation of the
Irene
year you were
Precklett,
born in.
680
That's
News.
all. You
Well,
did
coming up
nothing
in
special to
60
make that happen.
seconds, we'll check in with traffic and weather.
680 News Time, 11:50.
Leuna Local 506 points out that with the
Same assholes want me for some reason to give them free
measures
stuff.
have shut down many businesses, non-essential travel, schools, and daycares. As a community, we will get through this together. During this very difficult time, let's help each other out. Prevent the spread through self-awareness, social distancing, education, clean hands, clear heads, and open hearts. A message from Leuna Local 506, a caring voice.
Clear heads. You know how cloudy my head is now right now, man?
AGM Renovations is now ready to help all homeowners with any kind of emergency maintenance.
Keeping us on this bullshit. Taking burners, we angry. The time zone, shoot 'em with this look while we power and watch them die slow. We ain't moving, we shoot until every one of them die. We shoot back, shoot back. What they doing, we pulling hate on these demons, leaving everything in ruin. We bleed them devils, even some rebels coming around. We ain't moving, we shoot until every one of them die. We shoot back, shoot back.
Ready to go to war, ain't no front of this war, so we just taking them down to the floor. We bringing this heat so raw, we savage down to the core. We've been waiting for this so long, and now we ready like never before. And there ain't no stopping at the beginning of the apocalypse. We on this monster shit, burning down the metropolis. We taking hostages and giving your government intel. We taking their heads off just to show you this shit's real. We hold javelins, no for bone shattering, hosting domes battering, foes. We so savage shit. We from the coast and we can power like the storms. Hurricanes running through my veins, coming with no remorse. You better be ready for us. We ready for deadly force. And fuck your military, cause we coming to take down force. What? See what they started now, America is the target. They call it the home of the brave, native, I call it the home of the heartless.
What they doing, what they doing, we pulling hate on these demons, leaving everything in ruin. We bleed them devils, even some rebels coming around. We ain't ain't moving, we shooting till every one of them die. We shoot back, shoot back. What they doing, we eliminate on these demons, leaving everything in ruin. We clean them devils, even some rebels coming around. We ain't moving, we shooting till every one of them die. We shoot back, shoot back, shoot back.
He's not talking to all these idiots, panicking, drunky zombie people I'm talking about. He's talking to all the regular people in their houses, hanging out. And he's trying to reassure them. All these other idiots ain't gonna listen to nothing. What the fuck happened to the fucking music? I don't think that's the end of the shuffle. Ah, fuck. Turn the radio back on. Alright. Okay. I press play, did I not? Play. What could you idiots possibly have to be yelling about? It's just not doing anything now. Thank you. It's frozen. So frozen I can't see myself. What the fuck are you doing? Holy fuck, what the fuck is this?
John Gotti, CTM Music Group, baby. Woo! Bow! Yeah, I'm trying to get the paper, I'm just trying to get rich. We're doing for the big face, dead presidents. I got a Lamborghini dream, still got Mercedes Benz. And yeah, I'm a god, but I'm looking for a lick. You gotta get it how you live when life is like this. And yes, I need 36, a whole fucking brick. Rolling through the city, got my Louis Lowe's on. And I tell these motherfuckers, yeah, I get my smoke on. Cheech, strong, bust out the bomb. Working all day, flipping bricks by the yard. And you can try it too, but don't quit your day job. The streets need jump will make the times real hard. That's why I got all these tattooed scars. Chilling in the titty bar, rolling in the fancy cars. Swearing I'm a superstar. Yeah, I look like a model. B-I-O-R. Money in the rubber band, stack it till you can't work. Now I got the trade pen, it's got a real loud pop. I do my dirt in the dirt, fucking do it broad day. I got so many toys, AKs, SKs, long range, short range. Red stain, no brain. Who am I kidding, motherfucker, crime pays. Yeah, I'm trying to get the paper, I'm just trying to get rich. We do it with the big face, dead presidents. I got a Lamborghini dream, still got Mercedes Benz. And yes, I'm a vibe, looking for a lick. You gotta get it how you live when life is like this. And yes, I need 36, a whole fucking brick. Look. What the fuck it is, nigga? I'm not listening to grinding, that's the motto we live by for timing. Playing games, we got no time grind. Till our stack so high, right? For all the niggas who are close by, if you ain't out, please stay on the Lord's side. Big gun, eagle eye, that'll get your show fried. Grind. That's the motto we live by. Right. Tell all of your folks that
these niggas act sick like my niggas won't air you or talk tough till you see me creeping in your rear view. So I dare you, if it's me you wanna harm G, shots make your heart stop, I'm out in a heartbeat. Always on my feet cause niggas sneak for the right price. So in these dark streets I keep it close like a nightlight. When I let it go they taking off like a race. Niggas always rap, why you think this mask on my face? Why you think I'm on this block making cash different ways? Nipping to these heads of shots, pushing back your waves. Your mom catching graves when my niggas sit and laugh. But it's a straight face when I stick 'em for the stash. Yo, cause John knows I got some stacks at my base. But I'm still robbing niggas like I'm flat on my face. Still shooting shots, no shoes, get 'em laced. Do the same dirty, get away with no trace.
Grinding, that's the motto we live by for timing. Playing games, we got no time to grind. Till our stats so high, right? For all the niggas who are close by, if you ain't out, please stay on the Lord's side. Big gun, eagle eye, that'll get your show fried. Grind. That's the motto we live by, right? Tell all of your folks die. Yo, I'll ride out for the close ones. Crunch time, do time for the close ones. When it comes down in the long run, you niggas broke, I'm the man with the long gun. You're fucking with the wrong one. If my niggas broke, I'ma break bread. I'ma get you smoked up like a dope head. Nigga OD from this chrome lead. You owe me, pay me, or I flip things. Anything I find is mine, then I'm a jet. Certain niggas shouldn't chip, better off with a check. Certain niggas shouldn't grip, freeze when they see feds. Freeze when they see goonies. But it's nothing like the movie. Bunch of young youths with nothing but a movie. But we still on that fucking. And the streets done cuff me. I'm counting money, got me feeling so lucky. Still feeling cursed cause I sleep with a duppy. You niggas all sweet and me I'm on my munchies. I mean on my gunchies.
Clocks are not properly synchronized. My clock turned over 3 seconds before the beat. What happened?
Good morning, this is afternoon on also Tuesday the 14th.
It's lunch, motherfucker. Just say good lunch.
Good afternoon. Here's what's making
You eat
news
lunch?
this hour.
Shut up.
The largest number of COVID-19 related deaths is reported in Ontario. This as the province gets ready to extend the state of emergency.
The financial impact of the pandemic around the world will be substantial, with the International Monetary Fund forecasting the global economy will suffer its worst year since the Great Depression.
The Prime Minister says more than 1 million masks will soon be sent to provinces as new quarantine rules come into effect, and the feds look at new supports to deal with outbreaks in long-term care facilities.
And a Florida judge wants some new rules for video calls in place after lawyers appeared shirtless and still in bed for important online meetings.
NASCAR driver Kyle Larson is looking for a ride, and the NHL extends its quarantine period. Sports at 15.
We've got triple-digit gains on the TSX, the Dow, and the NASDAQ as earnings season ramps up. And the price for oil is in the red again. Business at 26. City News Time, 12:01.
Time for traffic and weather together on the ones. Good afternoon, Carrie Brunskis.
Good afternoon, Cam and Sarah. This traffic report is brought to you by CIBC. You'll find a lot of construction if you're out and about this afternoon, especially on the major routes. They're doing far more work than they were doing yesterday. So let's start with the westbound 401. First off, the southbound Kennedy ramp to the westbound 401. That's shut down for some road work. Then along the westbound 401 from Kennedy to Oregon and the collectors, they're doing some lane realignment. So just widening the collectors through there, but no delays. And then westbound 401 south of Pearson and the Express, the two right lanes are shut down. Eastbound on the 401, on the ramp to the eastbound 407, the right lane is closed. That's all for some bridge repairs. We had an issue eastbound on the 401 at Avenue Road in the Express. That's now completely cleared away. No delays to worry about. If you're planning on taking the eastbound 407, you can from northbound Airport Road. That ramp to the east 407 is shut down, all for some maintenance work. And a few more lane restrictions. Southbound on the 404 at Stouffville Road, the right lane is closed. On the northbound 404 through Elgin Mills, MTA reporting the right lane closed there. And in town, Queen Street from Carlaw to Jones, that's reduced to a single lane in both directions for TTC track work. It pays to open a CIBC Smart account, earn $300 and pay no monthly fee for up to 12 months when you open a new account. Conditions apply.
We got to replace the
And now with the
tracks.
forecast, here's Jill Taylor.
Just replace
It's a cool and unsettled day. Could
no
get
more
a few
parking.
flurries
You
or
can't do
showers and
business
still
up and
quite
down here.
breezy.
You
That
can't
wind
do
out of the
nothing.
southwest. Our guaranteed
Fuck
high
that
just
neighborhood,
6
and it
degrees.
takes
The
months
average
for
high is
some
12.
reason.
For tonight, we'll drop to -2. For the low, it'll feel like -7
Yeah, I know
early
that
tomorrow.
neighborhood.
For today, the guaranteed high 6. Right now in downtown Toronto, we're at 5 degrees under a partly cloudy sky. 680 News Time, 12:03.
Ontario is reporting its highest jump in deaths for a single day as the province gets set to extend the emergency order for another month.
You said the
680's
thing was
Irene Preckler joins us live with the latest from provincial health officials.
slower than it was
Irene,
yesterday.
there are 43 new deaths reported today. That compares to 17 yesterday. The number of lives lost in Ontario now 334. 483 new COVID-19 cases reported, bringing the total to 7,953 cases. Almost 45% of those cases, the people now better. We have seen a slight increase in hospitalizations, but a slight decrease in the number of people in the ICU and on ventilators. Meanwhile, the state of emergency in Ontario expected to be extended for another 4 weeks with an emergency session in the legislature. Here is NDP leader Andrea Horvath.
The NDP will vote in favor of today's bill and allow it to pass immediately. But the fact is, people were hoping the legislation would rescue them from sleepless nights and payments that they just can't afford.
Horvath saying if Ontario doesn't do more to help, some will go hungry, saying the urgent financial crisis some are facing is causing suffering. Reporting live, Irene Preckler, 680 News.
680 News Time, 12:04. Latest numbers from the International Monetary Fund predict a sharp decline for the Canadian economy and the rest of the world this year. 680's Moment Karachi joins us live with those numbers. Moment.
Ken, as we know, this pandemic is affecting pretty much every nation in the world, and so many have been wondering about what the economic impact of this pandemic will be. Now, the International Monetary Fund is laying out a pretty bleak outlook, saying it'll be the toughest economic impact worldwide since the Great Depression of the 1930s. However, saying that there will be a 3% drop in the economy worldwide this year. However, they are predicting a pretty strong bounce back of 5.8% growth next year. So that's almost double the amount of growth next year. However, the IMF's chief economist says predicting a bounce back is a little hazy.
This is a crisis like no other, which means there is substantial uncertainty about the impact it will have on people's lives and livelihoods.
Now, here in Canada, the IMF is predicting that the economy will drop by about 6.2% this year, but again, it's predicting a more than 4% bounce back next year. Reporting live, I'm Moment Qureshi.
The Prime Minister is vowing to send a lot of new personal protective equipment to the provinces as new quarantine rules come into effect, and the feds look to help address the troubling outbreaks at long-term care facilities. Here's our Parliament Hill reporter, Cormac McSweeney.
Canada has just received 4 plane loads of the critical N95 masks, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says 1.1 million masks will soon be sent to the provinces, along with millions of gloves and gowns in the coming days. The Prime Minister also announcing today nearly $130 million for northern communities to help them get through the COVID-19 pandemic. And he says at midnight, new quarantine rules will come into effect for everyone arriving in Canada.
If asymptomatic travelers cannot explain a credible quarantine plan, they will be required to quarantine in a hotel.
About half the deaths in our country have been caused by outbreaks that happen at long-term care facilities, and at some of those homes, staff have been walking off the job due to conditions.
The security system was
they are looking to deal with that scenario.
There are a number of provinces looking at the model put forward by Quebec that involves a salary top-up for people working in these essential jobs. We are willing to participate in that, in sending money to the provinces to help.
The Prime Minister also asked when the country will start reopening the economy. He says we are still weeks away, but they are in discussions with the provinces. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
Yeah, did you have money? Go spend it.
We have an update now on the 2020 U.S. presidential election. Barack Obama has now officially endorsed the presumptive Democratic nominee, Joe Biden, for president. Obama says the current Republican administration has damaged the country.
They've given polluters unlimited power to poison our air and our water, and denied the science of climate change, just as they denied the science of pandemics. Repeatedly, they've disregarded American principles of rule of law and voting rights and transparency. Basic norms that previous administrations observed regardless of party.
Biden leaned heavily on his affiliation with Obama during the primary.
Governors in the United States are starting to map out plans for reopening their economies when the time comes. It appears as if President Donald Trump insists that he has absolute power on deciding when and how to loosen restrictions in the country. World leaders battling the coronavirus are currently pinning hopes on tests, technology, and a coordinated approach to ease tight restrictions on movement and that have slowed the outbreak but strangled the global marketplace.
680 News Time, 12:08. This news segment brought to you by the Herzig Eye Institute. A Florida judge is making a call for video conferencing etiquette after several incidents of lawyers not being dressed properly for court proceedings. Broward County's courts are using Zoom, like many of us, but for hearings during the coronavirus pandemic. In a letter to the local bar association, Circuit Judge Dennis Bailey says attorneys need to get out of bed and put on some clothes. He says one male lawyer appeared shirtless while another female attorney was still in bed and under the covers during recent incidents. Bailey says a beach cover-up won't hide that a lawyer is poolside in a bathing suit. Coming up, we'll check the price of gas.
680 News Time, 12:09.
Reassurance in anxious times. We're in this
all you're going to tell me about that?
680 News.
Make it sound like something
I'm
bad
Sherry
happened.
Tabb, co-founder of the Herzig Eye Institute. We're taking every possible precaution
They can
to
only
keep
tell you
safe.
you have to show up. They
That's why
can't
the
tell you what
Herzig Eye
condition to
Institute
show up
is
in.
pausing elective surgery for the time being. However, we remain available online and by phone to keep you fully informed about our refractive cataract and laser vision correction services. And to schedule and reschedule your Herzig appointments.
Reschedule.
Google high definition vision and sign up for my blog so we can stay connected. Look after yourself. Promise me.
City streets. Police have closed Convert in both directions. That's through Greenwood due to hanging wires. Hydro crews are on scene there, and Queen is reduced to one lane both ways from Carla to Jones for TTC track work. Time now for the 680 News gas price update. Empro predicts the price will rise a cent at midnight to 78.9 cents a liter at most GTA stations.
680 News Time, 12:10. Dear Real Canadian Superstore and No Frills customers, starting April 16, flyers will be digital only. Please know that low price commitment is still the #1 priority.